All right, welcome to Inside the Podcast. Today's special guest is Chris Hopkins, the voice of Inside the Podcast, except for one episode where I had to stand in for him because he was busy. He's a busy man. He's a associate pastor at First Christian Church of the Beaches, and he's a youth pastor, and he pretty much pastors all kinds of stuff. So he's a very busy guy. And we're fortunate to have him to do the Inside the Podcast today. But welcome, Chris, to Inside the Podcast.
Thank you, sir. It's my honor and privilege to be here.
And should we call you Pastor Chris? Do people call you PC? What do most folks call you?
They call me PC. It's sort of the opposite of what they call you. You're a CP, and I'm a PC.
We're kind of in the Twilight Zone.
We are.
Yeah, mirror images of each other.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you've got the beard going, and I'm, for the most part, clean shaven.
But you look good with a beard.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah. Thank you, sir. I don't think I've ever seen you without a beard.
No, I haven't shaved it off in quite a while.
No. So funny story. We started, Mindy and I, Coach McCord and I, started going to FCC Beaches. It's in Neptune Beach. It's right on the ocean. It's one of the greatest pieces of property available at the beach or unavailable at the beach. And but it's a beautiful place. You actually, you stand and you sing hymns and you sing songs and you're looking out at the water. A very surreal place. And when Mindy and I first started attending services, it was because some of our players had gone for Easter service. And you had sent an email or sent a note or something to us that said, hey, we had some of your players that were at church. And so we started coming to church. That's how we first started. But tell us about your journey into ministry. How did you get involved with First Christian Church of the Beaches and your journey to get to where you are today?
Ooh, well, I was a bad boy back in the day, and I started driving the church van for my wife. My wife was in children's ministry, so I started driving the van for her and would help her when she worked with the teens doing lock-ins. And a couple of the teens came over and sat down and talked to me, even though I was an old guy. They started talking to me and made me feel like a real person. So I said, hey, maybe there's something to this. So I started talking back and started hanging out with them. And before you know it, too long, I'm working with them. And I became the youth leader in 2003. And then I got a nudge by God, or he kicked me really hard into ministry, and he's told me I needed to be a pastor in 2009, so I became the youth pastor, and then in 2010 I became the full-time youth pastor, and then in 2014 they made me the associate pastor, and I love what I do.
Yeah, I mean your enthusiasm. I think your ability, because we do communion every Sunday. And for those of you who don't go to church, communion is where it's a sacrament where there's representations of the body and blood of Jesus Christ. And you take these elements and you commune with God. That's what Christians call communion. And, Catholics have a different view on it. They believe there's transfiguration, where the body and blood of Christ, you're actually partaking in those elements, which is very literal. But either way, the way that it's done at FCC Beaches, I think for me, it was almost as if I was at the Last Supper. It was, and Pastor Chris is the voice of, it's seemingly the voice of the Lord when you hear it. It's amazing. So I encourage anyone that if you're in town in Jacksonville, go to First Christian Church of the Beaches, the 11 o'clock service. Go to Metro Diner first and then go and, partake in the communion there. It's an amazing experience. So you own a motorcycle?
I do own a motorcycle.
What kind?
What do you got? A 2010 Harley Sportster 48. It's I know it's a Sportster, but it's still got a lot of torque, and it will run with the big dogs.
And a former Navy man?
Former Navy man, yes. I was a flight deck director on the Forstall and the Kennedy, and I spent a lot of time pushing airplanes around.
And you still have your hearing?
I do. I can hear a little bit.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I can only imagine being out on a deck and those engines screaming.
It's quite an exciting job.
Oh, I'm sure.
It is.
And been all over the world.
All over the world, yes. The Navy is good about that. They don't tell you when you sign up that the world is covered with 2/3 of water, and I've seen probably 1/3 of that. So it's been interesting. I've been to the Indian Ocean and the Arctic Circle, and it's very cold there. So
Were you in during the Persian Gulf War when was that in the 90s? Or?
yes, I got recalled in my first year of reserves to Desert Storm. I did 3 years active, and then my first year I got recalled to the Gulf War.
And was your carrier the one that George Bush flew onto and said mission accomplished? Oh no, that was the next war.
Yeah, that was the next.
That was W.
Yeah. We had Papa Bush come on when I was in the Mediterranean in my last cruise in '89.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I saw Papa Bush or George H.W. Bush speak at the Air Force Academy graduation in 82, 81, 82, when I was a boy. And it was quite a sight to see graduation at the Academy. Amazing. I've always had a special heart for people who serve. I was an Air Force Academy ROTC, or not Air Academy, ROTC cadet at University of Delaware, Det 128.
Oh, wow.
And I really wanted to be a pilot. But my height didn't qualify me for anything other than a cargo. So they offered me special operations, and which is, like their special forces group.
Right.
And at the time, I'm like, I think if I'm going to do special forces, I'll probably join the Navy.
Yeah.
But I never heard of the Air Force Special Forces. I'm sure they have them. I'm sure they do a lot of stuff around airplanes and demolitions, things like that. But anyway, enough about me. Let's talk more about you. So here you are, Southern man, growing up in the South. Not a lot of lacrosse growing up in the South at the time. Now lacrosse is like the booming sport. Tell me about your experience getting to know lacrosse from our perspective.
I am trying to learn lacrosse slowly. I watch these incredible ladies running around on the field and smoking everybody that they get their hands on, and it's been a great journey watching this team this year. And maybe one day I will actually learn what's going on out there on the field, other than they can outrun everybody and outshoot everybody. So I look forward to knowing the rules here soon, as well as everybody's names.
Yeah, that's a big challenge for me too. That's why they have numbers. You can say, hey, 26 over here.
Yeah, you have numbers that go along with the names, so that's helpful for me since I can remember numbers better than names. So.
I grew up in Philadelphia, and Buddy Ryan was the head football coach for a number of years. He had the best defense ever that didn't win a Super Bowl. And he used to call people by their numbers. Hey, 98, you got to be doing this, that, the other thing. Hey, 27, you're not going to make this roster behaving like that. He used to have his old Kentucky draw. But, yeah, it was so funny. What qualities does it take to be a lacrosse player when you watch them, play? Like, what are some qualities that you see in a good Division I women's lacrosse player?
Not knowing much about Division I women's lacrosse or lacrosse in general, but I see that there is a love for each other and teamwork that goes into it. So I would say, teamwork is number one, and they are in great shape, and they can smoke everybody on the field.
Yeah, and we sometimes you play teams that are in really great shape too, and that's really a fun experience to see those teams go back and forth.
Yeah, I love to see you run and gun.
Yeah, it's different, right? Like it's not like you get the ball and stand there.
Right.
It's,
Yeah.
We always want to be a threat, and in order to be a threat, you've got to be in the right fitness to be a threat, or else you just won't stand there. So, but there's no standing around. So there's substitutes that'll go in there and do the job.
And what amazes me is that you said you don't do any conditioning; you just play.
Yeah, our practices are conditioning. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, our practices make the games picnics. And I think that's something that, we can use technology now. We put pedometers on our athletes so we can track how many miles they go.
Right.
And when your midfielders are going 6 to 8 miles out of practice and they're going at full speed, they're basically running a quarter marathon every single practice. Well, you can't do that all season long. So that's why the games are more of a picnic. And the games, maybe they'll do 3 or 4 miles, and they'll do that spread out over a 2-hour span. So our midfielders look forward to the games. And there's something to that. But at the same time, you can't overtrain. So we cut the mileage back as the season goes on, because you got to tax their legs early, and then you've got to relax their legs later, because you'll get injuries otherwise. Typically, our injuries take place at the beginning of the season. So if you don't come into training camp really ready to go, physically, mentally, emotionally, that's where our injuries take place. You don't see a lot of injuries during the season. This year was strange because we had a span of 4 years where we didn't have a single knee injury. And then this year we had 4 ACL tears in 1 year. And you're like, what in the world is happening? There is no epidemiology that explains it. Nothing explains the lack or productive knee injuries. The strength coach is the same person back when we had no injuries. So you can't blame the strength program, you can't blame diet, and you can't blame. It's just weird. And so those happened prior to the season. We lost our starting goalie. Well, first of all, we lost our best returning attacker in the fall. So she didn't even make the team. That's led the NCAA in scoring. So we did it without the keystone player that we thought was coming back. And everybody thought she was going to be the one that would lead the offense. And so she gets injured in October, and we don't have her. We lost a really talented freshman soon after that. Just went down. And then early on in the season, we lost our starting goalkeeper, who as a freshman was amazing. And we thought she would be our big goalie. And we lost a starting defender. So we lose 3 starters, and we lose a key freshman who was going to develop into an outstanding player on our attack unit before we really play a game.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, right? And then our top defender, our goalie, both break their hands, our second string goalie. So we're playing with our preseason defensive player of the year with a club. So she basically couldn't clear the ball because she had one hand. Now, she did a good job, but she probably could have had 25 caused turnovers, 30 ground balls. She would have been the defensive player of the year. But to me, that's a player that should get some kind of unsung hero award. Your senior defender captain who plays with a cast on her hand all season.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable. Who plays one-handed lacrosse? So Erica Beal did. And then Parker Day, one of our rotating attack players, she broke her hand and she couldn't come back. So 6 or 7 games into the season, just past that redshirt limitation, she breaks her hand. So 3 broken hands, 4 ACLs, major injuries. 2 of those broken hands play through a combined 3 games between them.
Wow.
And so when people talk about, injuries can ruin a season, they can. When people talk about, we're young, it's gonna be a struggle. Yeah, that can be a struggle. We were both. We started 13 or played heavily 13 freshmen and sophomores. We had 4 ACLs and 3 broken hands. And we won 17 games. We shouldn't have. But because we substitute a lot and everybody at practice really practices, we don't have a reserve squad that sits the bench or something. Everybody's playing, everyone's developing, and that helps a lot. Yeah. So, really amazing season for us. And you got to witness the whole thing.
I did. And I got to watch you smack down Liberty twice.
Oh, and interestingly enough, so you were sleeping with the enemy this year.
I graduated from Liberty University this year, and
you walked.
I did walk.
Go up there, go to Lynchburg.
I did go to Lynchburg and walk.
Beautiful place.
Beautiful place.
Campus.
Beautiful campus.
Unlimited resources at Liberty.
Unlimited resources at Liberty. Yep, they
Amen.
are amen. They are a great school. However, they got smacked down by JU
Well,
a couple of good times this year.
I don't
And
know. I don't know if you can really say smackdown. I would say the first game we played them, we definitely caught them by surprise. I don't think they were expecting what happened. In the championship game, I think they caught us by surprise. When you go into halftime with like an 8-goal lead and you score 14 goals in the first half, uh, your team has to come back out and represent. And what happened was their team came out and was like, "Hey, this is our last game. We better come out with some fire." And true to their name, they came out and they gave it to us pretty darn good. And so at the end of the game, it was kind of like, what's going to happen? Who's going to be the last team standing? And the ironic part was our freshmen made plays, and some of our new players, like Haley Sicklin, who was a fifth year, she made a great play. But we had players that had to make plays to win that game, or else it seemed like the pendulum was starting to swing. So I think, be a smackdown, maybe the first game, but I think it was more of an overwhelming type feel that we had that game. And then that conference final game, I think it was more of a true nature of the team Liberty is, which is, they're going to try to force turnovers and disrupt you. And I think that they did an excellent job there of that. But at the end of the day, I feel like we discounted them coming into the second half. We didn't discount them at the beginning of the game, but coming in the second half, first game we played, I think we scored like 17 goals in the first half, and it was like 17-2, and that was against Kennesaw State. And Liberty was, more talented overall than Kennesaw, and they were more feisty. And this is a team that only lost to Notre Dame by 3 or 4 goals. They were in a tight game with Notre Dame, who's ranked in the top 10. So this is a team that lost by 1 goal to Richmond, a team in the top 20. So, and they lost twice to us. So Liberty is a team that in our conference, there were 3 strong teams. JU, Liberty, and Coastal Carolina. And I think Kennesaw State could be strong at times, but other times they struggled in key games, especially against us. Could be a mental block there. But, yeah, Liberty ends up in the top 30 in the computer poll. And Coastal Carolina, they suffered injuries like we did in the middle of their season or late middle. They lost 2 of their top players to injury, 1 to a knee injury, 1 to a hamstring. So I think they would have been more formidable at the end had they not had the key injuries they had. They may not have as much depth as our program has, but their frontline players are strong and they have a good team culture, and they're a well-managed team as well. So there's those 3 teams there. But so Liberty, is a team that in the Atlantic Sun Conference, they have a lot of resources, and they have a big budget and they can do a lot of things there. So we think Liberty is going to be a challenging opponent for many years, and that's good. You can only. I think our league next year is going to be a league that should draw 2 NCAA bids, not 1. I think it's a league on the rise, and I think there's a bias against Southern teams and against some smaller leagues, or they would be called smaller leagues. But that bias needs to go away. People need to really look at the teams individually and not just assume what conference they're in is going to make them good or bad. So tell me a little bit more about. I would like to know, what was your favorite episode? What was your favorite episode to do? Like, did you have any scene or anything that you did that you liked more than another?
I don't know. I kind of like this last one. I always enjoy watching the ladies as they're having fun off the field, and I look forward to seeing all the slingshot video and listening to the all the bleeps that we're gonna hear.
Yeah, there's a lot of bleeps on those slingshot videos. So much fun though. Here we are in Myrtle Beach. It's championship weekend, and a few of the girls wanted to do it, so they did it, and then everybody else got in line, and our whole team did slingshots. And it's where you get bungee corded in this little pod up into the sky about 300 feet. And Petey, number 36, she got me to do it. She didn't want to do it. She was terrified. She'd only go if I went, or that's what they told me. So I assumed they were right. So I got in with Petey, and ours was the only one that the pod, when it got to the top, flipped and faced the bottom. So for the remainder of this ride, I'm like being pressed out against the bar, holding on to the bar because the gravity is taking me down. And then as we're going up, I'm still facing the ground. That's like everybody else got to face the sky, and they're having a good time. I'm facing the ground, looking at my humanity.
Yes. Staring mortality in the face.
Yes, staring mortality in the face. Thank you so much for being the voice of the team this year, and we hope that next year when we reintroduce the series, that you'll come back and have that insider perspective. And thank you for being the voice.
I have enjoyed it very much, very immensely. It has been my honor and privilege to work with such a great organization such as yours, and these ladies are fantastic. They're actually nice to me, so that's awesome. Being an old guy, having young people nice to you is really it's a really cool thing. So I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to future episodes.
All right, thanks, PC.
Thank you,
appreciate
sir.
you.
Thank you, CP.